For more on President Obama's visit to China and U.S.-China relations, we're joined by Jamie Metzl. He's the Executive Vice President of the Asia Society here in New York. Jamie, good to see you again. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about the President's trip to China. It comes at a time that China is relishing its growing global importance, as we just saw in that story, as a matter of fact. What does this mean for the United States?
The United States and China are now inextricably linked. Anything that the United States wants to do in the international arena, it needs Chinese engagement and Chinese support, and the same is true for China. Because our fates are tied together, the United States is going to have to think differently about how it exercises its power and influence around the world, and China and the United States are going to have to be partners.
So what's at the root of the mistrust? Why aren't they better strategic partners?
Well, there's trust and there's mistrust. With the mistrust, there's the challenge that the United States is in some ways a status quo power. The United States has been the guarantor of the international system for 60 years. Now China is emerging more rapidly than anybody could have predicted. And the very fact of China's rise is putting American dominance into serious question. And so China is at a point where it's going to need to say that, yes, we're part of the system that exists and here's how we're going to support it, or we have an alternate vision of a world that's multipolar, and here's how that world can address these big problems that we have. But the problem that we're seeing today is that China is exerting its influence, but hasn't yet articulated its vision of what the world should be. And so in issues like climate change, like Iran, like Burma, China is not yet fully on board with an international agenda, and that's, I think, causing a lot of friction. But
so you're saying it's not playing by the rules of Pax Americana?
Exactly. I mean, there's going to have to be a new system. It could be a Pax Sino-Americana or a Pax Everybody. But you can't. There has been a system, this Pax Americana. It needs to be replaced with something. If it's replaced with nothing, we're going to have big problems.
Right. Other than trade issues, other than the currency issue and business issues, where does the United States, give me some examples of how the United States views China as a strategic partner?
Well, the United States and China could be strategic partners in issues like climate change. There will be no deal in Copenhagen or anywhere unless the United States and China come together and agree that that those two countries are going to work together to address greenhouse gas emissions in a way that they can both commit to in a binding way. In Iran, if Iran develops nuclear weapons, there's going to be, by all accounts, a nuclear arms race in the Middle East that's going to harm everybody. But right now, the United States is pushing without the strong support of China, and Russia has been a little bit better, and others. And so, again...
But yet it is involved in the talks in North Korea, so it's playing, is it not playing a very constructive role politically?
And China has played a positive role in North Korea, and yet the North Koreans still have nuclear weapons. And so the question is, yes, there needs to be more posturing, more concerted effort, but at the end of the day, all of the leading countries are going to need to make compromises that hurt themselves even in order to promote a greater common good.
Okay, well, let's come back to the President's trip. Did he stress the issue of China's human rights abuses enough?
Well, he talked about it in Tokyo. He talked about it in his town hall meeting in Shanghai. There certainly will be people who will be critical of him for not yet mentioning Tibet and Xinjiang by name. So certainly he's been very forward in talking about issues of values. Whether he's been outspoken enough on those particular issues, we'll see what happens. But the President of the United States is in a very different position than past presidents because China has a lot of cards. The United States has a lot of cards too, but the balance is much more even than it's been in the past.
All right, Jamie Metzl, thank you very much for joining us.
My great pleasure.